Hello everybody, we're going to talk about Starfield and features I would like to see in the modding tools, in the game in fact, period. We're not going to cover bugs, right, because there's a lot of things that need fixing and I can make an entire video on them alone. We're going to talk about actual new features I think would dramatically improve the game and mods made for it. Now I'm actually talking now as an experienced modder of Bethesda's games. These are features an experienced mod maker and storyteller would like to see included. But a bit of background first. There's a reason why I never modded Fallout 4. It wasn't because I didn't like the game, it was because the dialogue system was absolutely atrocious. It was really bad. Right? Even Bethesda, recognised this in the end. So I'd like to see that completely overhauled. I mean, completely. The system where you actually added things in Skyrim was long-winded as well, so it wasn't perfect either. It worked, you did get used to it, but again you were back to using variables to control when things played and when they didn't play. So it's a bit like Oblivion, done in a more complicated way. So yeah, I'd like to see that overhauled. Now how would I like to see it overhauled? This is the question. One of the things Bethesda's games never done as well as others is storytelling. There's the way the dialogue system works, you never see the player talk. Now I don't think you will, because you'd have to have one voice for the player and the player can be multiple characters, so it wouldn't work. You'd have to have a male female voice for both just to make it work, and it might annoy people. So I don't think that would be the road to go down. However, keeping it along to the old system of you only see the person you're talking to speak, let's add a camera. Let's add an option to put a camera in certain dialogue spots, right? Either automatically add it at a certain degree, at a certain space whenever dialogue is initiated, or for cut scenes, you select use camera 1 and the camera placed in the scene would then film the conversation. So in these set piece conversations where you're actually walking into a room and there's a guy on the front, right, and he's never going to move, why not have a camera point from a third person at the player and the actual character he's speaking to, and immediately switch when the dialogue is activated and deactivated, switch back. So if you were to click on, say, a guard, which always stood in the same spot, the camera might switch to a view of you and the guard speaking. This would help storytelling dramatically. It would get annoying for everyday conversations, but for those set piece conversations where you want to tell a bit of a story, it'd be a very, very good option. I'd actually think that would be, it would improve the game dramatically. And whilst we're at it, if we're going to set up a bit of drama, like I did with my Return to Helga mod, because some of them will know it's a very dramatic mod, that is. It's for Skyrim, by the way. But anyway, it says you had like says Tiber Septim's Temple of Talos with the Knights of the Nine coming out from behind the statue, and if you had certain persons, or Matty's Knights of the Nine armour in it, my mod would actually detect it and use it. So they'd be dressed as Knights of the Nine coming out like that, standing next to the priest in a very dramatic way. Now if you can just imagine having the camera set there where that happened, that would have been brilliant. Even better, right, and this is another thing, even better was imagine if you could add music to it as well. Imagine you could add a bit of dramatic music in the background, because there are plenty of free sources of music out there that you can use. So imagine having music playing in the background as they come out, right? And being able to determine how long it played for, fading in, fading out, that kind of thing. And have it set whatever volume you like. So you click on the conversation with the priest, action, right? Camera switches, characters move out, music starts playing, comes in, music reduces in volume, conversation starts, right? That, you'd have an instant cut scene done from simple switching to camera 1, switching to camera 2, background music, That's what I'd like to see, because I think that would help storytelling immensely in Bethesda's games. In fact, I think it should be fairly simple to implement if you name the camera in the dialogue and tick a little box, right? Use that camera, because then it'd be just... So I don't see why they couldn't do it, and I think it'd vastly improve things. I would like to see a bunch of bug fixes, but I'm not going to talk about bug fixes in this, because you know, I can make a video just for them alone, to be honest, and I'm not feeling the need to do that just yet, because this would be a brand new game, so we'll wait till the game comes out. Anyway, yeah, as a storyteller and a mod maker, I tend to make quest mods, as you know. I made thousands of them. I don't think anybody else on this planet that doesn't work for Bethesda directly has made as many quest mods for their games as I have. I can't think of a single person anyway. I know teams that have done some really good ones, but I mean, I've done over 32. So yeah, and these are quite big ones, 32 large quest mods, not small ones. Minimum of 10 quests, right, for the small ones. So yeah, also factions. Now, I developed a system when I was modding for Oblivion, well, not Oblivion, well, yeah, Oblivion, but Oblivion onwards, where my factions got more and more in depth, and loot was specific to factions, and so was upgrades and ranks, and going up a rank didn't just give you a random axe. You actually got something specific to the faction, like maybe a new suit of armour, a medallion that helps you with the job, you know, an amulet helps you with the job at hand, that kind of thing, you know. So doing the quest line was a good way of getting certain features, certain amulets. I'd like to see Bethesda go down that road. So if you join, say, a police force, right, you might get a scanner that detects criminals. It's a basic one. But as you go up on rank, right, it might give you more information. They give you an upgrade on your scanner every time. So you get like a pit boy, but you get upgraded every time you did it. That kind of thing, you know. So when you actually deal with factions, instead of getting random in-game items thrown at you, the entire loot system is specifically tailored for the faction you're dealing with. So if you're dealing with gangs, for instance, then it might be drugs, beer, weapons, all kinds of things like that, you know, things you could sell for money, right, or it would increase your status. So you wouldn't just get a rank, you'd get something else, something to go with it. I'd also like to see a return to, I think it's a New Vegas system where uniforms mattered. You put on a uniform, you became that faction. So a combination of a uniform and actually being in that faction would determine your rank. So if you actually had, like a police, a space police, for want of a better word, and you put on the lieutenant's uniform and you were actually in that faction with the proper IDs, then everybody in that faction would treat you the way you're supposed to be treated for a lieutenant in the police. I'd like to see that kind of thing. But if you just had the uniform, then you'd be able to fool them into thinking you were part of the police, unless they, you know, checked your ID, and then they'd know you wasn't, and trouble would start. So I'd like to see more of that going on, right? I doubt we will see that, but I would like to see more of that. I think that would be a good thing to do. I mean, Bethesda could play with it a little bit. I mean, Obsidian did in Fallout New Vegas quite successfully, I should add. So why not? Why not go back down that road? If they want to make it more of an RPG, encouraging players to pick a character and stick to it and not be so many jack-of-all-trade types would be a good way to do it. So yeah, I'd like to see more features to support that kind of thing. Basically that would involve faction updates, faction changes, more features in factions. You could have a little tick box for check ID. In other words, if the character walks past you and you've got check ID ticked on that character, he will check if you're in that faction. And if you're wearing their uniform but not in that faction, it would know you're an intruder. But if you don't have that thing checked, then it doesn't do the checks. Or maybe he does it randomly. Have a random check in a box. Check 30% of the time. So 30% of the time they do an ID check if they come close to you. That'd be good. That'd be good for factions and stuff. That'd be quite a feature, I think, to add. And it'd bring all the rest of it into play as well, all the other bump. Because all these extra features you get, medallions and stuff, if you wear them all, then maybe the chance of being detected would be reduced. For instance, right, if you have a badge, maybe the chance of them detecting you goes down by 10%. So 30% check goes down to 20% check. Got a uniform, maybe it goes down to, you know, another 20%, so they've got 0% chance on a 30% check. You'd have to have somebody that's a bit more observant on, say, 60% check, you know, because you get like the badge and the uniform, that's minus 30%, that'd give them a 30% chance of detecting who you are, that kind of thing. Because I think the factions are vastly underrated in Bethesda's games. I mean, they've always had the potential, always. Right? The features have been there to allow to do some wonderful things, and I have. Right? And the problem's always been that you couldn't edit a faction without affecting it in every single mod. So what I used to do is I used to put the default faction there, and then I'd put my own faction on the same character to add features. And that's a little tip for you modders out there. Instead of editing the faction directly, which is a bad thing, just add your own faction to the same character who's in that faction. So if you've got, say, a Fighters Guild, you might have Fighters Guild plus, right? Which basically adds support for the Fighters Guild here and then adds your own support on top of that. So yeah, right, that's the way to do it. Anyway, yeah, I think these two things here would actually go a long way towards making the game better, opening it up for roleplay, and generally making it more exciting. Because these might not seem that important, but when you think everything in the game is a member of a faction, you can randomly spawn these things. You could randomly spawn a really good guard or a really crap guard. So you'd never know when you walked into a secure area which type of guard you would see. You might get a really boring one, maybe low levels. All the guards are a bit easy to get past, and at high levels maybe they require you to have a certain amount of skill to get past it. So there's all kinds of ways these things would interact. Stealth, for example. Stealth might not work too well with a big heavy uniform, right? On the other hand, if you're trying to sneak by a guy with a 60% detection rate and your stealth was, say, 50, you'd only have a 10% chance of seeing you or noticing you were there. See what I mean? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Right, you get the idea. There's a few other things I'd like to see, but I think, you know, this video's gone on long enough, so I'll talk to them in the next ones.